Hello, colleagues. Thank you for inviting me to talk about the power of art at the Aspire event and also the impact that arts can make in our mental health and well-being. Now, my focus today is to explore developing learners' voices by reimagining creative writing opportunities and giving learners creative agency to support their well-being. My name is Lizana Oberholzer, and I am a senior lecturer at the University of East London. What I'm hoping to share with you today is very much a project we engaged with over the 3-year lockdowns. And it started off with a group of colleagues and learners in the summer term when we were in our first lockdown, and it organically evolved. And it's also based on the work Julia Skinner does in relation to a 100-word challenge. So we were all challenged to write a creative writing piece of 100 words to help learners capture their experiences, share stories, to give them agency to cope with their challenges in a time of crisis and challenge. And these creative expressions and shared experiences provided opportunities for learners to share, come to terms with their challenges, and reimagine new opportunities to move forward. So there's a lot of positives that came out of this particular project. And it was interesting to see how the language changed, to see how the expressions changed, and also to see how the images that were used changed, which is really interesting. And also all the images on these slides are original images that are accompanying the reflections. Some learners enhance their work with photographic images, as I've mentioned, which are included in the slides. This case study reflects the positive impact creative writing can have to impact learners potentially to find their voice. And I think for me, also someone who is working with colleagues on a module on mental health and well-being, it is really important to think about the different avenues of how we can explore developing and harnessing creativity to help support with mental health and well-being, because there's quite a lot of research supporting the engagement with creativity and how that really helps on many levels, not only in our work, day-to-day work, but also then in our overall well-being. So it's quite an important focus for myself and my learners moving forward. And just a brief bio. I know you've also probably had this program. Just to outline, I am a senior lecturer at the University of East London. My role is to oversee the MA in leadership as well as the MA in education. And I'm involved in a variety of different organizations, which I greatly enjoy. And I also enjoy the creativity of the critical explorations, discussions, and unpacking of learning. And I think that's really a key part. Creativity is a key part of what we need to do to really explore beyond our here and now and our boundaries. And that's so important to consider. Now, why is this important in relation to the work I do and also the work we've undertaken? And as I've mentioned, it started off very loosely and organically as a way to help to find moments where we could share practice and moments where we could share experiences and moments where we could just really connect. And I think that it is a really key word, connection. We wanted to find connection and make sense. A lot of sense making had to happen, especially during the different lockdowns and what it meant for us and how we wanted to move forward in our own situations. So Lynch highlights that mental health is increasingly recognised as a key factor in learners' overall well-being. And as an educator, I feel I cannot ignore that. And I always try to find and seek ways to embed creativity in some of the work I do. It's not always 100% feasible, possible, but I have found that there's always an avenue or a way that we can unpack that and explore that. And I particularly like words as well. And I think that sometimes when we listen to the different layers and nuances of meanings that words can really convey, it's fascinating to look at what could come out of that when we analyze words closely and also think about the etymology and what's underpinning that word moving forward. So there are many ways that we can creatively engage, and it's important to find those avenues. Now, the All Parliamentary Group on Arts, Health and Wellbeing outlines the following in their report in 2017. They highlight that when you do engage with creative activities, it alleviates anxiety, depression and stress. In addition to that, an Arts on Prescription project has shown that 37% drop, a 37% drop in GP consultation rates, and a 27% reduction in hospital admissions, representing a saving of £216 per patient. Well, for me, that's an interesting statistic, and it's really useful, and it really supports the point that we are making, that being engaged with the arts really improves our health. But for me, it goes far beyond that, far beyond the statistics and financial gains. In addition to that, it also highlights cultural engagement, reduces work-related stress, and leads to longer, happier lives. And I think that whole emphasis on happier is really important here. Happiness is really important. We cannot ignore the value of that. Art therapies have been found to alleviate anxiety, depression, and stress while increasing resilience and well-being. So again, that importance or that emphasis on resilience and giving us that sense of being able to bounce back at any point in life and finding positive ways forward. So in terms of COVID-19, what does that mean for us, and how did we create shared experiences? At the start of the pandemic and moving into the first, second and third lockdown meant that even when learners were learning together, they were no longer part of a closely knitted community. They no longer benefited from a supportive group and others listening with empathy to guide and support. Sharing experiences and practices became more and more important to create a sense of belonging and a sense of safety. And we often forget, and I obviously haven't written it on the slides, but I look at students and how they engage with each other. And of course, it's not at the moment possible to engage with each other in this way and on this level, but how often people actually do touch each other, hug each other, and really just reassure each other. Those things all fell down the wayside and were missing from the engagement that they had in the past, and how can we reimagine that, and how could we capture that? So the project developed from the needs of the learners to share and support each other and to develop that sense of peer support. And it was not just the learners, it was us benefiting from it too. It became a really co-constructive experience. And that is always the important thing to consider here, is how we all learn together as part of a learning community. So as I've said in the beginning, the project was then sort of loosely based on Julia Skinner's work, the 100-Word Challenge project that she rolled out for primary school children, secondary school children, as well as adults. I understand from conversations with Julia. We met at the Chartered College of Teaching event, and Julia enthusiastically explained to me how the 100-Word Challenge works, how she sets a prompt every week, and how learners right across the globe then participate and post their different reflections on a blog site, which she then manages and feeds back to. Now, our initial start was a lot more simple than that. All we wanted to do was just 100 words every week, pen down our thoughts and our reflections of the world around us and what we saw and what happened and what unfolded, so that we could share it in a 10-minute shared opportunity. And later on, as the project evolved, as people got more and more enthusiastic about it, they also started to draw in images and also brought that to the table. Now, this project is now moved on in a larger scale project, which is called the UEL Smiles Project for the School of Education and Communities. And I'm hoping from the work that we are currently seeing and which is emerging from this project, that I'll be able to pull together, with the students' permission, of course, the wonderful reflections they are starting to pull together to reflect their experiences as first year undergraduates, level 4 students, and how their journey is being depicted by these reflections. But this will be a piece that I'll probably hopefully share with colleagues at a later stage. But for here and now, I'm just reflecting on a very, I think, organic process of us wanting to share our experiences and wanting to reflect on our journey. And so I'm sort of sharing in this case study some snapshots of the 100-word challenge reflections, as well as in the accompanying images, to just give you a sense of what people have experienced during their first lockdown and beyond as well. And also look at how the language changes, look at how the sort of reflections are changing, and also how we're moving closer to a more hopeful place. And that's also very exciting. So this one here, again, reflection on traveling on an empty train, an adult traveling on an empty train, no one in the seats. And it's a stark contrast from what often happens in London when you do travel home. You're often not in an empty train, you're often stacked with other people in a carriage. And this is then the very first reflection we had, exploring what it felt when lockdown happened in March 2020, not 2021, March 2020, empty carriages, being the only person on the train. So just listen to the language. As the train rattles hollow down the track, the city runs empty, empty from emotion, people and hope, just empty. I wonder if my own life will start running empty, empty from loved ones, without hope, and empty of lost experiences, opportunities, and moments of joy, just empty. And we were reflecting on this one also sort of in conjunction with a post that was posted on YouTube at the time by an NHS nurse who got really upset at the time that people started to buy a great deal more than they needed to, and what that meant overall, but the feeling was very much empty. And I love the opening line, running empty as the train rattles hollow down the track, the hollowness, the emptiness that is felt, and the sense of hopelessness in this reflection. And again, another one, again, as you can see, no one on the station, so no beginning, no end. It all feels so hopeless, so never ending, with no beginning and no end, the invisible enemy floating in the corridors and creeping up on us. Hope, where is the hope? How will tomorrow begin or end? We are moving into a lockdown, and it is uncertain. Will there ever be an end to this? Will there be a new beginning to this endless, hopeless moment of fear? Again, that real sense of hopelessness, and that key word at the end, a moment of fear, being amplified there. Then we start moving into lockdown as people are starting to settle in. And it's interesting, we got more natural images being shared as well, as you'll start seeing, and reflections on what sunrises and sunsets mean. So it's when, for example, sunset and sunrises, significant, sorry, I'll start again, apologies. Sunsets and sunrises signify a beginning and an end. With lockdown, we are blessed with a cycle of natural warmth and beauty to make it all more manageable, to enable us to cope as the pandemic is raging on. We are all still here, and nature reminds us that the cycle of each day, each week, each month, and each season slowly moves on, and we are all still here. As the sun sets and rises every day, we are still here. So there's that glimmer of hope starting to come through here, and that glimmer of that we are all moving on still, and we need to, that's important. But it's interesting how the pandemic is being described as a pandemic that is raging on. Interesting imagery being used. So this one, burning hope. With every glorious sunrise, it ignites the hope of a new day, and new opportunities, whilst the angry grip of the pandemic rips through the nation. Sunrise, the seemingly normal start to every day, blazing beautifully and hopefully. When the dark shadows of the invisible enemy continues to wrap us in its black cloak of pain and destruction. So again, interesting imagery being used, a black cloak, the invisible enemy, again, echoing some of the rhetoric that's been used in the news at the time. So again, the language used starting to display the experiences as well. And again, lovely images of sunrises. And this one again about fog, blue. As the foggy morning wrapped in its blue blanket of cold welcomes me with its cold hands and arms on my morning walk, the solitary journey reminded me of the journey some of us will need to undertake. Ripped from our loving families, having to help others during the pandemic, to support, to nurture, and to care for. Some of us might never return from the long, challenging journey. Called to serve and called to see it through, and concluding our contribution to others. On our way to another dimension or afterlife, walking towards the rainbow of hope. Again, the rainbow image then starting to make its appearance as the images were displayed in windows by children, and also then that image of hope displayed for the NHS. But lovely how the image matches the reflection here. And of course, you can see that sense of reflection. And as we also know, the research shows the more we engage with nature, the more we enhance our own well-being as well. And it's interesting how the lockdown also then enables people to connect with nature more, and also connect with themselves, their own reflections. And I love the image of the cloak wrapping itself, and the images of journeys again, but the pandemic very much described as raging or angry, and its destructive path being emphasized in the piece. Another one, hope. Light after darkness, the end of a lockdown, freedom to meet and see others, the warmth of a hug, the warmth of contact, friendly voices, and normality. Light after darkness, hope, love, family, friends, time, warmth. The rainbow of hope transforms into a pool of golden sunshine, of promise and new beginnings. So again, how nature is used to depict that, and interesting the use of individual words to emphasize those things that people now cherish, that they are reminded of, that they've missed, and the emphasis of the word warmth. So what is emerging from the project? By sharing experiences, learners could share their experiences, and it seems quite obvious, but often we don't say these things, and it really enabled them to open up and say, well, I went for a walk today. That was such a privilege. I've learned that, I've reflected on this. Expresses their concerns. We could actually clearly see from the poems how frightened they were, how empty they felt, how they felt that it was quite hopeless, and also how they started to move into a greater sense of hope as the lockdowns were starting to be relaxed more as well. In addition, then also becoming more and more creative. As you can see, the language changes, the imagery that's being used, as well as the images itself being really lovely and expressive and framed really well. And also then safely sharing their experiences and safely reflecting on what has been experienced during this really difficult time. Celebrate their creativity. For once, they didn't have to worry for a couple of minutes in a conversation about Harvard referencing, but they could really just share their creative expression. And if they didn't like writing, they could share an image. We wanted to be as inclusive as possible. We wanted to give everyone a chance to share. And celebrate their creativity was one of the things we wanted to amplify. Celebrate their achievements as well. we wanted them to celebrate the beautiful writing or the lovely images that they took. That was really important as well. And then also work towards hope. We wanted students to really benefit from this, to acknowledge that things are trying and challenging. And through those conversations that we also started to see some more hopeful reflections, more hopeful considerations of where we're heading and what might happen and what's to be and what's not to be. And as the project progressed, the somber responses became more and more hopeful and positive. Learners inspired each other to use imagery, new techniques, as you could see in the structure, the way individual words were used, the emphasis, the repetition, as well as in thinking how to contrast the pandemic to then what nature is telling us, that there is hope, that we can move on, that we can reach out. And I think that all sort of really captures and distills what we felt and what we've experienced as well. And most students started to draw on images for inspiration too, and they became more aware of the world around them and nature too. So this project really helped people to I think, find their inner voice, to be brave, to say what they feel, to share what they feel, also connect with nature more, also see the positive when it's really bleak and dark, and really try to then work together to a more positive outcome. And here are some more of the lovely images we saw. Some are, you know, quite lovely urban images, and some are lovely sunsets, again, sunrises, wildlife, frost. As you can see, there's a whole range, and it's been a real pleasure to work on the project. And as I'm speaking here, and as I've said before, we are currently rolling this project out then to our SMILES project at UEL for our peer-to-peer mentors in our undergraduate courses. And we are really looking forward to seeing what students are capturing regarding their university experience as well. And I know that Julia Skinner herself experienced the influx of reflections over the pandemic, and also more recently, I think she has over 400 responses a week that's been posted on her blog post as well. So it's been a tremendous experience and privilege to work with these colleagues and young people, and also mature students from their own context. And I've learned so much from them. And personally, I now take a walk every morning, taking pictures as well as in the evening, and connect with nature to enable me to tell my story as well, and share with my students how we make the most of every moment. But I think more importantly, it also gave them the confidence to become more creative and have the outlet when they needed it, and also to realize how much they value the arts, to enable them to have a voice and to continue to be creative, and to be creative in many different ways, rather than just being connected to one way of doing. So it also transforms in their work. I've seen that in multiple presentations, and I've seen that in multiple reflections, that the work then becomes more and more enhanced, and it deepens that student's ability, or that person's ability, to then look at things with a wider lens, and to drill deep and to reflect on things more deeply. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope that you've enjoyed the presentation. As you can see, I've kept my camera off, and I will tell you why. I didn't want to distract from the beautiful images, and also the images that you have explored in the pieces. And I'm hoping that this is a message of hope, how the arts could show us a way through a very challenging time, but also that we can then reap the benefits on so many other levels, including our own mental health, to then, you know, become a whole community of experience and practice. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.